I'm a high school teacher and a university adjunct film instructor as well. I've been through a lot with this mental illness thing, and it started way back in 1979. After going through 2 years in a state mental institution, fed every wrong drug imaginable for illnesses. Through the years, I learned how to live with this illness. I also find out that it's incurable. I wrote a book and it got a website, and in that book I discussed a 6-point plan as well as long as my journey. So that's what I'm out now, just trying to get my message out to help others.
Welcome, everyone, to the One Moment Podcast. You got your boy and your co host, Kevin Odom, and I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor, a licensed clinical addiction specialist, and a certified clinical supervisor, all in the state of North Carolina. Now, we tried to do this the other night, but we ended up getting kicked off. Major tech issues. Now, I'm going to blame it on him and his end because I'm an Apple freak and I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, really though, all jokes aside, we literally were like 10, 15 minutes in. We were in the weeds in depth. We cut maybe half the onion within 15 minutes. We've never done that before on this show. And if you know what I mean by cutting the onion in half, typically we will peel an onion, right? And kind of open it up a little bit. But we cut the whole onion in half. We didn't even peel it. So tonight we're going to give this thing another shot. And I want to emphasize this to anyone who's listening or watching. You might be triggered during this episode. And if that be the case, please reach out for support. Please reach out for help. You have the 988 number, which is the National Suicide and Crisis Hotline. You also have the National Alliance on Mental Illness, also known as NAMI. You also have the SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. You also have local crisis centers and local emergency departments. If you are in need of immediate help, please reach out for help. Now, with that being said, we also have our boy and our co-host, Trevor Zalstra. Now, everybody knows him. He's a former corrections officer. And he's been a phenomenal piece to this team, a phenomenal and amazing piece. Now, I'm going to let Mr. Yanni go first since he's absolutely an amazing, distinguished guest. And Trevor's just, Trev. We all call him Trev. So let's start off with you, Mr. Yanni. And I know we started yesterday, or excuse me, the day before, when we originally tried to do this, major issues. So kind of just bring us up to speed on like a little about you for the general public to know.
Well, thank you, Kevin, for having me on your show, and Trevor, nice meeting you as well. And I'm a high school teacher and a university adjunct film instructor as well. And I've been through a lot with this mental illness thing, and it started way back in 1979. And so what I did was I finally developed, after going through 2 years in a state mental institution, fed every wrong drug imaginable for illnesses that don't even exist. Later doctors told me that, he said, how you survived these 2 years taking these psychiatric drugs 4 times a day, every day, no relief. I don't know how you did it. And so through the years, I learned how to live with this illness. I also find out that it's incurable, just like alcoholic. You're never over it. Some people find a way to live with it, some don't. And it could also damage you physically. People think it's just a mental illness or just damage you mentally. Well, they're wrong. It could also damage you physically, where it causes irreparable harm to your organs because of the stress placed in you mentally. And through this, living through the years with it, I've developed a 6-point method that I use that helps me get through days. Some that are worse than others. So I wrote a book and it got a website, And in that book, I discussed a 6-point plan as well as long as my journey. So that's why I'm out now, just trying to get my message out to help others, because this illness, even to this day, no matter how much is out there in mental illness and all these places to call and whatever, it's still largely swept under the carpet. It was really swept under the carpet in my time. And the heinous place I went to was eventually closed down for maltreatment. I mean, imagine that, a state institution being closed down for maltreatment. And Trevor could understand this too. There were convicts in there, convicts, and they would rather be in prison than take these psychiatric drugs. I mean, think about that for a second, how those drugs are dealing with your mind, and you're going to go nuts because those side effects are incredibly horrible. And you're taking more than one drug usually. So the effect is not multiplicable, it's exponential. And within 20 minutes, once that drug dissolves into your bloodstream, you're going to feel something. There's not a day goes by, not a time goes by, you don't feel something. Those movies you see with the people just laid out, out of it. Yeah, because they're probably scared to death. I know I was in there a lot of times because I couldn't believe what those drugs are doing to me. I was taking the wrong ones. It's like you go in a hospital for pneumonia and they treat you for cancer. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And so each one of these drugs has vicious side effects. And we're talking millions. When you mix two drugs, the effects are exponential, not multiplicative. So something's going to happen to you. It's just a matter of what. And when you're treated for the wrong illness, then it's really scary. And that's what I went through for 2 years. And the doctors that looked at me were from, private places. I went to one after I got out of there and moved to Arizona. He got the records from Chicago and he just couldn't believe it. He said, I've been in this field over 30 years and never read, encountered, studied, or had anyone that been through this journey. And he asked me how I did it. I said, well, I met a few good people along the way and also mainly through the grace of God. Because without God's grace, we can't do nothing. And my 6-point plan is faith-based and also common sense-based. Because a lot of these, theories out there and methods out there, they forget common sense. And, common sense is actually a gift of God. So that's kind of a summary of what I've been through and what my goal is to help others and get the message out on this, because there's so much misinformation about mental illness too, because everybody's got a different opinion, and they rightfully so. Thing about it is, you study about the mind, we're lucky if we know 20% of it. Yeah, we know what parts do what, but we don't know how the mind processes information. And that's the main function of the brain, is to process information. We don't know that. Guess what? Even the greatest scientists are reduced to a blind man wearing a mask entering a dark room trying to find the light switch. Good luck. So that's why all opinions are based in some kind of validity, because no one has the exact answer. If they did, we'd all have the mental illnesses cured.
That is an amazing story, and I flowed right through the description of that time that you spent right up until today, because I've had a very strong apprehension from a young age to taking these pharmaceutical uh, concoctions that they say it's FDA approved and it's gonna work. We're trying it on you. I'm like, what? You're supposed to be the professionals. You're supposed to be treating me, and yet you just have to advise me to beware of the side effects of all these things. And that's like right on my personal plate at this moment. So I'm dealing with something along that lines, but I have to do a lot of research before I decide to whether imbibe these substances into my body to deal with what I have to deal with. It's not necessarily a specific mental health condition, but it's something that's not going to go away. So I'm okay. I'm right at your the precipice of paying close attention to this conversation. I thank you very much for being part of our podcast and sharing what you have already. It's like, bam, all right. I hear you, Kevin. We didn't peel back no onion. It's chopped right in half, and we're down at the core of things already, and I'm engaged.
I appreciate you guys having me on. I mean, that's really nice of you guys to have me on your show. And hopefully we can work more in the future too, as I was discussing with Kevin. And, you bring up some good points, Trevor, about this. I was taking one drug called Mellaril. If you look up Mellaril, you Google it, it was banned by the FDA in 2005 because it caused heart arrhythmias. I was taking that for months. I had a heart arrhythmia for 30 years I didn't even know about. And so I recently had a heart ablation to get rid of the arrhythmia, because arrhythmias are very dangerous. You could die from them. And as I was fortunate to have good insurance, what put me in those state places was the lack of health insurance. That's why I'm a big, big advocate of national health insurance. I mean, come on, countries like Canada and Europe can figure it out, as wealthy as we are, and we can't figure out just because of some doggone politics and
Right.
throwing all this money into the military. Give me a break. You could slash that military budget by 30%, wouldn't put a dent in it, wouldn't lose a bullet, wouldn't lose a war, wouldn't lose a life. And you could use that money to better means. I was part of that. When I was a computer programmer for the state of California, they had a system called OBIS, Offender-Based Information System. Department of Corrections, state of California. They took money from mental health and put it into prisons when the California had that 3-strike laws under Reagan, and then later they implemented it more. I was part of that, where they're building all these prisons. And I'll be honest with you, gentlemen, this is after I went through my 2 years of hell in that state institution. And I cried, because as a programmer, you take the live production data and you image copy it into a test region, and that's where you test out your programs. And you're going through there, and I had every convict in California from Charles Manson on down. I had all their records, all their stuff you could look at. And some of those people in there, because of 3 strikes, California made everything a felony. So you go into a 7-Eleven and steal a Baby Ruth candy bar and get caught, felony. 3 of them, the judge has no discretion, no levity. He must send you to prison, 25 to life. And they hated doing that, but their hands are tied because of that law. And the prison population, the prisons went nuts. And that's how I got that job. But there was times at my workstation, my terminal, I cried, because I read those records on those people. All they needed was mental health treatment. They didn't need to be in prison. And it's really sad. And then unfortunately for Reagan, he dies of a mental illness. Some people call it poetic justice. I mean, I just wish that, much as I dislike Reagan and his policies, I wish that upon nobody, because that's just a horrible way to live, a horrible way to die. And, even you can disagree with people, but I wish no harm on anybody like that. And I seen that happen. I was in those institutions. I seen those people. They were wards of the state. They ain't getting out. And I'll show you how funny the mind is, how the mind works. Since we know so little about it, we can't predict what it does. I was in there with a young man named Denny. His name was Dennis. We call him Denny. And he was in there for way longer than I even dreamt about being in there. And he used to be a computer operator. Now, me, at that time, I had 2 college degrees, and I knew something about programming. And then later on, I thought about it more when I became a programmer. Even then, in that situation, he was taking Haldol and Thorazine, 2 of the most vicious drugs you could take. Okay? Thorazine is what, back in the 50s, when they fixed fights with the mob, is what they put in the water of the fighters and give them a drink of water between rounds. You give him a drink of water before he goes out. He goes out there, he's a zombie. He gets whacked, knocked out first round. Denny was taking Haldol and Thorazine together 4 times a day for years. And guess what? He remembered the computer operating commands to run a full job control. I was just stunned. And he was in there for years. How can his mind remember all those controls? We call it job control language, and there's basically three main functions. You got your executable, you got your job control card executable, and you got your DD statements, your data statements. He knew them all. I was like, whoa. That taught me a lesson in there that the mind is a very powerful tool. That gave me hope. Hope is a real key in these situations. That gave me hope because if he could still manage to function mentally, taking those drugs for that long in that heinous place, I can recover too. I could recover. So, it was guys like him a lot of time that inspired me to saying, hey, I could whip this thing. I could lick it. Like Angelo Dundee used to say, I could lick this thing. But it's not easy. A lot of
My
people
good-
give up.
My goodness, that is a very powerful example and description more. So it amplifies the necessity to really address these mental health issues and take them very seriously because people's lives are at stake. And that to me is
Yes.
the most valuable resource that we have, especially with children. I don't know how this would affect a person that would be under the age of 18, but I am certain that with as much testing and processes that they go through, it must be a terrifying experience for a young person, especially when their brain isn't even developed to an adult level yet. So, for an adult to have to go through it makes a lot of things more capable of
Yeah.
establishing a source of fear in you.
You're right,
And
Trevor. I mean, I've worked with high school kids who've committed suicide.
oh
There's
man,
2 of them, and they are both Native Americans, and they're noted for being very humble, very quiet, not wanting to talk about their problems. And unfortunately, a lot of times they don't get the best of medical care, even though the reservations are filthy rich from those casinos. They don't even help their own people a lot of times. It's really a sad situation. You see that out here in Arizona a lot. And
and that is
had
appalling.
2 students commit suicide. And even people that got money, look at Robin Williams. He committed suicide because he cannot control the extremities. Now, I prefer to call it manic depression. Nowadays, the in vogue term is bipolar. Me being type 1 because I required institutionalization. I was hearing voices. There was nothing my brother could do. I didn't have medical insurance. Therefore, I'm an advocate for national health insurance. But in Robin Williams' case, he was a multimillionaire. He could have got the best psychologist, psychiatrist, because psychologists are just going to talk to you. Psychiatrists are going to feed you drugs. That's the difference between how those two work. So he could have got the best that money can buy, and yet he still succumbed to that illness. That's how vicious, that's how unrelenting, how evil manic depression, bipolar type 1, whatever you want to name it, list it in medical journals. It's a vicious, unseen enemy, and you better be prepared because you're going to get attacked. I don't care how long you've so-called been cured or not in an institution anymore, you're going to get attacked. I got attacked today in the classroom. The kids were really acting up. I started getting angry. I started losing some control. And so I did one of my 6-point methods. I didn't show the kids, but one of them is from the Bible. When Christ was ready to do the crucifixion, Peter told him, don't go through with it, Jesus, don't do it. And Christ told Peter, pisamo, satana, which translates from the Hellenic to away from me, Satan. Not that Peter was Satan, but his words were satanic. Because if Christ didn't go through with the crucifixion, there is no resurrection. And without a resurrection, there is no chance for Zoe, the Hellenic word for eternal life. So he had to go through with it. So what I do is, remembering that biblical passage, I take my two index fingers together and I push them out and I say, Satana, pisamu Satana, away from me, Satan. So that evil thought, that evil direction going in my mind, away from me. Just like Peter was told by Jesus, because not that he was satanic, but the words were. And in my case, not that I'm satanic, but the thoughts were. So that's one of my 6-point methods that I use. And there's a guy in England, he really liked that. He was in a halfway house and we talked and we went over all the 6 points, but he liked that one the best. He said, Yanni, that really helps me when I start going south. And, and the thing with manic depression too, that people don't realize, or bipolar, it's not just the lows, it's the highs you got to be aware of too. I went through a bankruptcy because every time I felt euphoric and I felt good, I went out and blew money. Okay. And that got me into a bankruptcy. So now when I, hit those emotional highs, I don't buy anything. If it's over $100, walk away. I don't care how great a deal it is. I don't care if they're going to sell me a car for $101. Not that day. Think about it for 24 hours. Make that decision when I'm more level-headed. Because when you make your mistakes with this illness, when you're too high and too low, and the power of that little pill that they give you, convicts would rather go into places in my home state back then, places like Marion, that's where Gotti went. Places like Menard. I grew up with a lot of convicts in my neighborhood, rapists, murderers, strong-arm robbers, you name it, we had it. Okay. They're from the South, working ammunition plant for Vietnam War. But they were just, there's a lot of good families there, but there's also bad families there that those guys were just like to do wrong. They went to places like Menard, St. Charles. And these convicts would rather be back in prison where you can get shanked, shivved, killed in a heartbeat. They'd rather face that than take that little pill 4 times a day. That's how powerful that pill is. And you're not taking one, you're taking more than one. To give you another example, I grew up with a kid in high school named Scotty. He became a drug dealer. He later became very successful in business, but during high school, a little bit after high school, he dealt drugs. Back then the big thing was heroin, and then the next big thing was marijuana. Scotty dealt them all. Heroin to marijuana. He took them all, heroin to marijuana. He visited me when I was in the mental institution, and I slipped him a pill, a Mellaril. He went home and took it. He contacted me. He said, man, what in the hell are they giving you? That knocked me out for a whole day. I said, that ain't nothing, man. You only took one. I got to take 4 of those. If you think Mellaril can kick your ass, try taking Haldol or Thorazine. That'll really kick your ass. That'll knock you into next week. And here it was, the guy took every drug from heroin to marijuana. And he said, no way am I doing that. So you can imagine being in these places, because I got a scar right over here where one day I didn't want to take it, and those security guards hit me to pin me down and put me in a restraints, and they shot it in me. So you're taking your drugs. I got news for you. There's never on Sunday. You're taking your drugs 4 times a day, every day. There's no calendar in there. So the drugs are scary, and even more so when they're not the right ones for you.
Wow.
That's what I've been through for 2 years.
Plus you're having to deal with the side effects of that chemical too, which can be even worse than the actual condition itself. So go ahead, Kevin. I didn't mean to cut you off, buddy. Go ahead, Kevin.
No, you are good. You've mentioned a lot, and I want to. I mean, there's so many things I can hit on right now. But
go for it, brother.
Right, go for it, brother. I got you. One of the things that you mentioned, it makes me think of I got it pulled up. But you mentioned the idea of, and this is just a quote that I'm gonna steal right now, but it really hits home. A pill for every ill right now is what people are giving, and that's just the bottom line quote basis of what's going on in our healthcare society. And I think what is most important, rather than giving a pill for every ill, is to think about lifestyle changes, right? Because there's so many things that if we were to make critical lifestyle changes, then we would then do, how much better chemically and biologically, right? Or chemically are we able to readjust ourselves in life, right? Therefore, if I'm obese rather than a pill, unless it's medically necessary, uh, I need to do some exercising, right? I need to change up my diet. If I'm, struggling with opioids, then there's many different types of treatment, including exercising, right? Exercising helps to reduce the severity of the withdrawals from opioids. So that's one of the things that was clicking in my head as you were talking. Now, you also mentioned you're bipolar one and you were hearing voices and stuff. Now, I did a quick some quick research and I wanted to read some stats off because I want to know if this was even your experience. Individuals with bipolar face a substantially elevated risk of suicide attempts, with estimates indicating that 25 to 60% will make at least one attempt in their lifetime, and rates as high as 30 to 50% in some studies. Next stat is completed suicide is alarmingly common in bipolar disorder, with 15 to 20% of individuals dying by suicide, which is suggested to be rates of 8 to 9 times higher than in the general population and up to 20 to 30 times elevated overall. And the last stat is going to be this one, that bipolar disorder carries one of the highest risks for suicidal ideation, with lifetime prevalence in youths with bipolar disorder estimated at 35 to 46%. So I read those stats off because I think it's important. I think it's critical. I think it's critical to understand what has been your experience with suicidal ideation, suicidal attempts.
Well, right off the
I,
bat,
I don't mean to
when I
interject, Yanni, but let me throw this out there for anybody that's watching this podcast right now. If you have been triggered by any of this discussion, we highly recommend you to use the resources that are available. You hit the 988 number, hit the the NAMI issue resource, the SAMHSA, the local agencies. If there's anything that we're discussing that you have an issue with and that has triggered you, please reach out to someone, because there is someone out there that is willing to help you. Now go ahead, Mr. Yanni. I apologize for interjecting, but
no, no, no,
I thought it was
I'm
in
glad you
timeliness,
injected it, Trevor.
being mindful to
I'm
say
glad you
that
injected it.
right at that time. 'Cause you never
Uh,
know.
No, 100%, 100%. But it's true. The first time I felt it was when I first became mentally ill. I was in Florida. I lost my job. I felt really down and out. I was thinking about jumping off a bridge in Tallahassee, Florida area. I was going to kill myself. That's the first time I thought about it. I didn't have the courage to kill myself. To be honest with you, I was too scared to kill myself. And other times I thought about it, but I'm Hellenic Orthodox. Greek Orthodox is the faith I grew up in, and learned more when I was young. I became mentally ill at 25 years old, around the same time my mother did, and I was in the same place as my mother, the same state institution. So I mean, that's a little scary, and I knew it because my mother told me the the vicious, the wicked shock treatment she went through, and they erase part of your memory. They try to give them to me. I refused because I remember the stories my mother told me when I was a child of the hell she went through. I'm in the same place as she was, around the same age when she was there. Same exact place, probably walking the same set of floors. So anyway, when you get back to the topic of suicide, you think about it from time to time, but being Orthodox, my faith also helped me in that, because the the one sin that's unforgiven is suicide. Okay. I mean, I don't think Judas is in heaven. he betrayed Christ. He also committed suicide. Peter also betrayed Christ. And Christ told him, you will deny me 3 times before the rooster crows. He betrayed him because he didn't want to suffer, and they heard his accent. His accent gave him away. But Christ forgave him. Okay? Peter didn't commit suicide. He died of an older age. Okay, so that was always in my mind. If you want to, uranus, we call it in Greek, or heaven, you can't commit suicide. Times you want to. That's another reason I don't carry a gun. You only make one mistake with a gun. Okay? Without a gun, you can make multiple mistakes. So, I'm against suicide. Look at Robin Williams, prime example. He had all the money in the world to fight it because this thing eats at you. And that's why, I use peace and move, Satana, away from me, Satan. Another one from a card of my first spiritual father, Father Ioannis Skiotes, John Artemis. On his card, he had a little saying in the bottom left-hand corner of his business card. Remember, no human condition is ever permanent. Therefore, you will not be too overjoyed in good fortune, nor too sorrowful in misfortune. That gives you balance, which is exactly what you need to combat manic depression, bipolar, because they're looking at the extremities. They're going one to the other, right? Too high, too low. So that little phrase gives balance. And when I need balance, that's what I say. This too will pass, as it's written in the Bible, but no human condition is ever permanent. So when I say that relaxes me that, okay, I'm too out of balance, relax. This is going to change. This won't be permanent. You will get balance. You will attain balance. So that helps me as well a lot. And like I said, that came from my first Father Confessor's business card. But back then, when I had that business card, I wasn't that serious about it because on the back of it was a girl's phone number. So I didn't even realize that about that card until I was in that institution, and my brother, who I gave a lot of hell to, and he forgave me, and they told him he's going to blame you. So they warned him about all the verbal vituperativeness I gave him for being in my situation, but he forgave me. When I was, getting better, i.e., able to handle the side effects, it's amazing how they go hand in hand, even though you're taking the wrong drugs for an illness that don't even exist. But anyway, when I was getting better, I told him, his name was George. He passed away about 3 years ago. God bless him. But I told him, get me Father John's business card. It's in my wallet. My wallet was in his house. And he brought me that business card. I read it every day. I kept that thing with me as if it was my own personal Bible. Every day I read that statement on Father John's business card. And again, it gives you balance because those drugs will drive you crazier than the illness. There's a woman, she's pretty famous. She's spent years taking wrong psychiatric drugs, Laura Delano. She's got her own website, made a lot of speeches. And she talks a lot about the viciousness of psychiatric drugs. And see, that's the problem. It's not that these doctors and these scientists mean evil. They don't. It's just that, at the most, 20% of your brain is known. You can get better odds going to Vegas and playing craps than 20%. Okay. So, you bet on the big 6, big 8, it's, you got a better chance than that of winning. So, we're trusting our life on these pills where they don't know what they're doing. Would you let somebody work on your teeth if they only knew 20% of dentistry? See, you correlate it to other medical issues. Your answer is going to be no to every one of them.
Definitely
Yet we
not.
wholeheartedly, FDA stamp and approve all these psychiatric drugs. Yet if you take that same chance with any, would you let somebody take out your tonsils, only knew 20% about how to take out tonsils? I doubt it. You'll bleed to death. Okay, you gonna let anybody operate on you if they only know about 20% of that operation? I highly doubt it. Yet here you go. Take your drugs, take your drugs. You're gonna take them 4 times a day. Take your drugs. That's what
So
happens. And you're
in it,
taking those drugs because you'll get beat if you don't.
in Yanni, in reference to
I'm
the
sorry,
spirit.
guys. I get a little emotional on this.
No, that's okay. It's just part of the human condition. Now, something that helps us in this human condition is that spiritual relationship. Now, I'm not a religious person of any religion anywhere that does exist, but a spiritual relationship with however you perceive the higher power that you want, that's your business. But you have to maintain that connection because you're fighting a battle, a spiritual battle, especially when you're dealing with the pharmacia. In the scriptural references that I know about personally, there are references that are pointing at the pharmacia or pharmaceutical over the years have developed it into that. And so it's a spiritual war in these chemicals and substances that were suggested to imbibe in our bodies, but we're actually doing harm to our spirit or our soul, the center of our being. It's going to keep going on forever, one way or the other. That's the only choice you have. And while I'm here in this existence, I thought I could be like everybody else too and do whatever I wanted, but it hasn't worked out in a beneficial way for me whatsoever. So now I'm applying that knowledge and using that insight that
Yeah,
was
you
in me the
hit
whole
on a great
time.
point there, Trevor, too, because as far as the religion goes, the good thing about my 6-point method, all religions have the same fundamental tenets. I don't care
Right,
what religion, so they all are well meaning. I happen to be, Greek Orthodox Christian, but you look at Tina Turner. You think she wasn't going through mental hell with all the way she was abused? Sure, she was. And what got her through? Buddhist chanting. In that movie, What's Love Got to Do with It? And for her, the chants of Buddhism helped her get through. So, every religion, I don't care what it is, has its good things to offer people, good tools to use it. That's why to me it doesn't matter what religion you are. And then in my 6 points, you could take out mine that are Christian based and put in yours of Muslim or Buddhism or whatever if you want. It's going to be the same effect because they all
right.
have the same fundamental structures. It's just that the way they do their window dressing is a little bit different.
A
So
lot.
it's
So,
take your pick.
so you went 2 years in a state psychiatric unit. No, wrong medication, and wrong medication back to back to back. And you found that you came up with the 6-point method. So, and you must have been in your 20s during this process, right? So,
Yeah, it was 2025 when I went in, 27 when I got out.
gotcha.
And then
Okay.
through the years, I developed the 6 points, kind of like through trial and error, because I wasn't going back to those places. I wasn't taking drugs. You're not giving me a damn pill. That ain't going to happen. Shoot me, execute me. I ain't taking a pill because
So,
those pills gave me too much. It wears your body out too. That's what people don't realize. It wears you out physically. That's why those people in those institutions you see in the movies, they're just laying there like vegetables. They're out of it. They're out of it mentally and physically. It's not
so,
like they got a workout room in these places. You're laying in a chair all day.
so what is the 6-point method? Because you developed it over years, and I want to talk about that because I think it's important,
Right.
right? Like, especially with me as a therapist, right? Anything that is effective for people, I need to be open to and be open to even learning and implementing even in my own practice, right? And maybe I can teach other people about the 6-point method and at least give them additional tools that they can use in their toolbox. So if
Yeah.
you don't mind, help us
And
understand the 6-point
and I,
method and how you've done that.
first thing I do when God gives me another chance for another day, first thing I do when I hit the floor with my feet is be prayerful, grateful, and hopeful. Give all thanks to God. Right away, you're infusing your mind with mental positivity from the moment you wake up. Okay, that's important because some people wake up, like the adage, on the wrong side of the bed. This diffuses that. Prayerful, grateful, hopeful. We say in Hellenic, dosis theos, glory to God. So it's all about mental positivity. And then the second thing I do is I recite my daily prayer rules. And it takes me about 5 or 6 minutes to get through them. And everybody can have their own, it doesn't matter. But this helps me keep my spirituality. Mine cover an array of topics toward maintaining that spirituality. And then this battle that we're fighting, that's extremely important. So it's kind of like, my prayer rules, the things I want to go through, kind of like you have in your own biblical service or your own Muslim service or your own Byzantine chants, whatever. Again, injecting your mind with spiritual positivity, regardless of what your faith is. It don't matter about what the faith is. It matters about having faith and being spiritual to give you that mental health positivity. Then the third one we went over before about Father John's card, no human condition ever permanent. Then you'll not be overjoyed in good fortune nor too soft for misfortune. This provides the balance. When you feel too high, too low, bingo, pull out that technique. Now this one the fourth one I got from a young woman in the halfway house. I was in there when it's part of the state institution. I was in there when when you're dealing better with the drugs, they send you to the halfway house. After the mental institution, went to a halfway house, and in there they're still feeding you your drugs 4 times a day, and it was just as crazy as the institution. But anyway, this young woman, very attractive young woman, I'll never forget how she wailed when John Lennon got shot, December 8th, 1980, because I was in there when I heard her. Okay. And she said, "Look, Yanni, you are never cured. Always eat well and get your rest." That is a physical must for manic depression. A lot of doctors won't tell you that. They want to feed you drugs. Okay. But I always make sure I eat well and I get my rest. If I have to miss work, I miss work. If I have to spend money that, is supposed to go somewhere else, it goes into buying food. I'm going to eat and I'm going to rest. And the fifth one I got from a talk show. I was channel surfing. And, so when I need to do it, I do it. Now, some people don't sleep. Okay. I don't let it worry me because my body's telling me I don't need to sleep. But you got to be careful as a manic depressant because the first signs are you not wanting to sleep and not wanting to eat. So sometimes if I don't sleep a lot, I don't fret about it. But if it continues, then we got to stop it. And then the last one's the one about Pisa Musatana, away from me, Satan, as we went over. Is it okay if I stop sharing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
So what do you think pushed you to looking at or coming up with all 6 of those? Because they're in a specific order and you went years trying to figure this stuff out. So what was it that made you land on those 6 ideas right there?
I wanted something that, Kevin, to get me through the day. And I needed more than one technique. Because sometimes, if you only have one, it gets stale, right? Like if you're a baseball pitcher and you only got a fastball, your arm get a little bit tired. You're out of luck now, buddy. They're going to start teeing off on you. So I needed more than one. And I just happened to think of these things when I was comprising a way of going along. And I said, what really sticks with me? And those were the six I chose. And I put them in the first one in a very, they're kind of like in a sequential order. That first one, I want to start out that morning right. Because see, when you're a manic depressant and you're on the downswing or even on the upswing, you're starting off wrong. That's why you're spiraling either down or spiraling up, because you're starting wrong. So we got to level that. We got to just bomb that right out of the park. And then we start each day prayerful, grateful, hopeful. That right away is a positive step. As soon as my feet hit the floor, that's what I say. Start each day prayerful, grateful, hopeful. And so and then I go into my prayers, because I learned that from the monks. The Orthodox monks, they pray 5 times a day. The Muslims copied that also, praying 5 times a day. They copied it from the Christians, because Christianity was 600 years before the Islamic faith. So they took a lot of Christian tenets and molded it to their way, which is fine. And we all got at things. Christianity took a lot from the Jewish religion. So, we all have our ways and they all work. So the prayer worlds was like me starting every day after I think those positive thoughts. Okay, now let's let's coat my body, take my, breakfast, my protein shake breakfast of spirituality, by doing my prayer rules. That settles me down. I cover all these points, and right away I'm pointed forward in spiritual thought, forward in mental positivity, because that's what it's all about. Because, depression, the word itself is depressing. The word itself is a downer, depressing. Okay. So again, it fights it. The same thing with Father John's card, the same thing about what the girl told me: get your rest, eat well. Same thing the woman on the TV talk show said, listen to your body. If your body says rest, rest. If it doesn't say rest, don't rest. Like, some people fight to get those 8 hours in. Last night, I only slept 4.5. Woke up okay, prayerful, grateful, hopeful, right from jump. My prayers, I'm going to work, bingo, another day. Day before that, I slept more than 4.5 hours. So I don't let that bother me, okay? Because the main thing is to be positive. And then, of course, when I got attacked today, the kids started getting on my nerves. I started feeling angry. I started feeling like slashing out right away. What Christ told St. Peter: peace in you, Satana, away from me, Satan. So those angry thoughts where I wanted to retribute against these teenagers because they're acting out, no, I'm not going to get on a manic depressant attitude. So I squashed it. And the kids didn't see it, but I went like this to myself, I was walking, I just pushed it out like that. And the kids didn't even know what the hell it was. They don't need to know. So, you have these weapons available to you, because you're going to get attacked. And it can happen when you least expect it. You could be feeling great, and all of a sudden, some thought from the past flash you in the brain. You sink like the Titanic. How are you going to get out of that? And that's what these 6 points are all about, is ways to get out of these lows and also combat the highs. Because the highs are, like I said before, just as dangerous as the lows. And that's what a lot of times they don't talk about in manic depression. They just talk about the lows. The highs drove me into bankruptcy. So I learned from that. I got my ass kicked financially. That ain't going to happen again, because I can go out and buy stuff just on the hell of it.
Now, I do have some additional questions, and I'm gonna let Trevor close this out here in a bit. Um, but you mentioned going into these highs and lows, and it took you several years after 25, 26, 27, after being in that psychiatric institution. So, how long did you struggle before you came? And what I mean by struggle is, being half treated, half untreated, things like that, right? Like that major struggle versus now it's being treated. How long did you struggle with all of those highs and lows before you finally got a sense of, uh, I say, grip, organization, just and now officially being treated?
Well, that's a good point because, you're constantly getting attacked and some days are better than others. I didn't have a game plan until decades later. It wasn't like these 6 points I thought about when I got out. You're struggling every day. The day I got out, they told my brother, do not let him stay with you. I got out, and in 24 hours, I was in a $250 car with no air conditioning, driving 1,800 miles on the way to Arizona, institutionalized. Try that drive sometime. Even Dale Earnhardt Jr. have a tough time making that trip. And let me tell you, buddy, that is no cakewalk. At 100 miles, you're institutionalized. People, unless you've been, in some form of an institution, convicts can relate to it, and so can people institutionalized in mental health. You're beat up mentally, you're beat up physically. It's not like you're getting exercise in there. And so, luckily, I was at an age where I was still young enough to have innate natural strength. Okay. If I was older, it'd have been worse. Now, I got attacked years later. It must have been about, I don't know, 15 years later or something. I got attacked real bad. I almost damn slipped and went back into another institution. I damn near slipped. And that scared the bejesus out of me. I'd wake up in cold sweats some nights thinking about all those things that I seen and heard in that place. And and you also develop an innate fear. I'm not going back. And I won't kill myself, but you're going to have to kill me to send me back there. I'm not going through that again. Now, the one doctor I seen who couldn't believe my journey, couldn't believe I survived all this, he said, Yanni, the most popular treatment for that is carbon lithium, something like that. And 6 weeks and you're fine. It's 6 weeks. Huh? I spent 2 years and never took a drop of carbon lithium, carbon lithium, whatever they call that drug. And I just kind of chuckled. I said, man, they gave me, and he said, Yanni, they treat you everything but the right thing. He said, some of these illnesses here, Yannick, he read through the psychiatric reports. He said, some of these illnesses they're claiming you have don't exist by modern medical standards. They just don't even exist. Yet they're feeding you drugs for it. And that was just, to me, I didn't know none of that. I never got those reports. He contacted those places and got them. They were still open at the time. They've since closed, but back then they were still open because I seen him right after I got out. And he said, Yanni, anytime you need to see me. I said, doctor, I appreciate that. And if necessary, I will. But to be honest with you, doctor, I hope I never see you again. And I didn't. Okay. And not because of him, but because I was determined not to fall into that trap. And part of it's genetic. My mother had it. My mother's brother had it. Okay. So, it happens. And so for me, it took me decades to figure it out. So all in between those times, 36 years, I haven't since I've been out of there. All between those times, you struggle and you get a piece here, a piece there. I had Father John's card. I had the talk show. I had the girl the pretty girl who cried when John Lennon got shot. Okay, I had the Bible with Peace and Musatana. They're all piecemeal, and then finally they all came together. I said, okay, I'm going to use this in this situation, that in that situation. And then as, time went on, just recently, I wrote this book just last year. And recently I figured, you know what? I could help others because, I guarantee you could probably count on one hand how many been down my path. Yeah, a lot of people been to institutions that they weren't state institutions. They weren't state institutions that closed down, and they weren't fed wrong drugs 4 times a day, every day for 2 years. You could use one hand to count the number of people that went through that hell. So I said, I have something to offer people. God allowed this to happen to me to help others. What good is it? Because, you go through this and, society tells you, oh, don't talk. You shouldn't talk about it. You shouldn't talk about it. You can't believe the number of people said you have a lot of courage to come out and say these things. I don't think it takes any courage. I think it just takes honesty and humility and the willingness to help others. I don't need a bunch of acronyms and initials behind my name to help somebody, doctor this, doctor that, PhD, whatever, screw all that. All I need to do is open a door and help people. That's all I need to do. There's no courage behind it. Courage is like my friends that got killed in Vietnam, a wrongful war, yet they had to go. Okay, that's courage. So to me, mental courage is speaking out about something that society crushed. Yeah, some people can call that courage. I don't. Screw them. They're going to dictate to me how to live when I'm the one who suffered. The hell with that. Peace and move satana. Because to me, those are evil words. So, but that was the way society was when I got out. So it was for my mother. And it pained me the pain my mother felt. So I said, no, I'm going to come out. I decided last year, I said, no, I'm going to talk about this because I can help somebody. That boy, James, I helped in England. That gave me great pleasure because I was able to relate to him who's going through manic depression in a halfway house and give him a tool to work with. Yeah. Who doesn't want to make money? Sure, why not? I mean, I see these clowns walking around out here. I see them on these shows. To me, they're nothing but 2-bit whores and country bumpkins and clowns out here making all this money over their story of mental illness. Well, hey, move over, buddy. I got one too. Everyone's got, so, not to knock them, but yeah, sure, you'd want money, but money ain't the main reason why you do it. Although some of these people that say, hey, we can get you on a stage and get you speaking. Oh, by the way, it costs you $6. I said, wait a minute. I've been talking since I was 1 year old. I'm 71 now. I've been talking 70 years. You're going to tell me how to talk? I've been a high school teacher 25 years. You're going to tell me how to talk, how to do a presentation? No, you want that $6,000. That's what you want. So tell you what, how about we do this, buddy? I'll give you $6,000. Once you drive me through your lessons and how to present and how to get these speaking engagements, I'll give you the first $6,000 you get from me on these speaking platforms. Yeah, that's the last time I heard them talk to me. So, they want your money is what a lot of these platforms are all about. I told the guy, give me the gig, I'll give you the money till I pay your bill. If your system is so good, if it's helped so many people, teach me, I get that gig, I give you the money till I pay your bill. You never hear from them again.
Yep.
They want your money. Once your money, your good is gone now.
I almost
So, nothing, but, maybe they help some people, but I said, no, that's not going to help me.
yes.
I'm sorry, guys. I get on these tangents. I get carried away.
You're okay.
No, dude, we are both laughing about it. Trev, look,
Good.
look.
Because
I'm so
it's the
focused
truth.
on you. Every time I would glance over at Trev, he was rolling, and I'm telling you, he and I both are sitting here enjoying it, man, because your energy is so passionate, right? Like you have that passionate energy like we do when we get on here and we have fun. We do these podcasts. Look, we don't make a red single dollar, okay, a red single penny off of this. And Trev, am I lying over that?
Nope. It ain't about the money. It's just be able to help other fellow human beings be more positive and more productive in their own lives for their own selves so we all can be doing better collaboratively and collectively. And now, what I want to say, Yanni, is that because it's kind of drawing towards the end of this for me, um, we usually close our show out with what would be your beneficial thing to help other people's with, as far as what we like to call our one moment podcast call to action. And this is important information now. So just dice your words and use them as most as you can to the benefit for the next person ahead of you.
And don't forget where they can purchase your book at.
My book is Living with Manic Depression from Pain to Purpose. Okay, is the subtitle. It's available on Amazon. It's also available through my website, Ioannis You can go there. There's a thing there where you can order the book there as well. And it drives you to Amazon. So the main thing is you can buy it on Amazon. And it's pretty cheap. I think the hardcover is like $9-10, and the other one's $5. The Kindle thing, whatever they call it. So that's where you can get that is. And Trevor, as far as to answer you, if I had so you tell me one thing I'd have to say to people. Is that what I'm understanding you right?
No, it's what would your general call to action for someone that's going through possibly manic depression? What is your call to action to help them from your perspective to them? That's what we want is your
Well,
perspective.
not to sell, yeah, not to sell just me, but I also talked to someone else that said, Yanni, you ought to offer coaching. As passionate as you are, and with your plan in place and with your experience, you ought to offer one-on-one coaching. So if they want to contact me for that, I have a package for that as well, one-on-one coaching, and they can contact me, IoannisSkiotes.com, or my name. If you search my name, you're going to find a way to contact me. So I offer that. But the main thing I want to tell people is that one point on that card. Remember, no human condition is ever permanent. So I want people to have hope, have faith that they can overcome it. And everybody's got a different story. Everybody's got a different journey, but don't give up. Don't give up on this. This condition can be beaten. It can be dealt with. You can live with it peacefully. And that was the whole thing about my 6 points and about my book and about relating my experiences, that I'm an example that, yeah, this can be whooped. I mean, doctors didn't help me. Doctors, retarded my health. They didn't improve it. I had to go through a heart ablation because of the drugs I was taking. They didn't help me a damn bit. Not that they meant harm to me. They just weren't right. They tried their best for the way they seen it. But what this proved to me is to tell others, no human condition is ever permanent. You can learn how to live peacefully, happily, with dealing with manic depression. You just have to have some weapons to attack it, because it's going to attack you. And that's the best thing I could tell people is stay positive. You could beat this. It's not going to beat you. You're going to beat it. Someone comes up on you, a bad thought comes up on you, bing, fight it back. Fight it back. You can't beat it. It's when we give up is when we lose. Like Michael Jordan said, I never seen anyone, make a shot they haven't took. You can't, unless you take the shot, you can't score the basket. So same thing here. Unless you're positive, you're not going to beat it.
That's
and
right.
Believe me, you'd be amazed. You'd be amazed at what the mind can do. There's a great power in that mind. We don't know it. We only know 20%. But there's on that hidden 80%, there's a lot you could do to conquer this condition. And that's my main message, is not to give up, stay positive.
Thank you so very much for being part of our podcast and our mission to become a global resource, because that's what we're doing. We have to help our fellow human beings all across the planet, not just here, there, in my local area, my region, my northern, southern, eastern, western direction. It's a global problem. So I just
It is.
I just like to say
I thank you.